everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report for the channel. Today in a 17 threat match we have the Black Order once again taking to the table, the new and improved Black Order, featuring the new characters as well as some of the old returning ones, against the also new and improved Guardians of the Galaxy, well, hopefully improved, the Guardians of the Galaxy, to see if the new cards for them have made a big difference to the general quality of play you get out of them, because beforehand it wasn't great. But anyway, let's take a look at the two sides. So the Mad Titan himself has come out to play today. Thanos is here leading his Black Order as opposed to Corvus with the new, whatever the tactics card was called that we saw last time. He is bringing his two newest members though. Supergiant, who is the one at the back, remembering it correctly this time, and Black, not Black Lotus every time, Black Swan, Black Swan, there we go, Black Swan, tearing apart whatever it is that she's tearing apart. And she works well with Black Dwarf. They actually have a tactics card where they work together. On that note, their tactics cards: Black Onslaught, Price of Failure, Blood to Spare, Mothership, and Advanced R&D. So we'll see how that works out for them. Thanos doesn't have any Infinity Stones just because of the threat limit, which does sort of limit his usefulness and makes his threat cost a little exorbitant, but we'll see how they do anyway. Well, maybe the Black Order are on Earth looking for the Infinity Stones, that's why they don't have any yet. So the Guardians of the Galaxy have followed them and plan to stop them, being led by Peter Quill, Star-Lord. We have Groot and we have Rocket. Then we have Angela, guest starring, as she is an Asgardian. And we have Gamora. Now, as for what's changed for them, it's quite a lot. For instance, Rocket now has a role which makes him immune to collisions, which means he isn't carrying around the thing that will kill him when he stays super close to Groot for that bodyguard, because beforehand, anyone who could pick up and throw Groot just uses it to take out Rocket because he's super close to him. On that note, they don't have to be within one anymore, it's within two for the bodyguard. Star-Lord himself, his affiliation bonus for the Guardians of the Galaxy is better now. You don't have to sacrifice a tactics card, which is why no one used it. So now each turn, when you're dishing out power, I think the wording is, you give out 3 Winging It tokens, and they can be used to reroll 2 dice on an attack, defend, or dodge. Now, if we forget to mention who has them at the top of each turn, we'll be putting the icons next to who have them. So, actually, where are they? They look like this. Oops, there's one just fell. If you look at that, so whoever has one of those will be able to do those rerolls at some point if they choose to. Don't have to use them, but obviously it's a help for any rolls that kind of whiff bad. And their tactics cards are Crew of the Milano, We Are Groot, No Matter the Cost, Lovable Misfits, and Deadly Duel. So no matter which way you cut it, it was 17 threat today, which is always bad for the Black Order. They like playing higher values. But the extraction, struggle for the cube, so that's the 5 cube fragments on the map. 1 VP in the end phase for each fragment held, and you can hold multiple. You get 1 extra power if you're holding them, but you also suffer 1 damage. Then the Infinity Formula goes missing for the secure, that's the 4 serum canisters. 1 VP for each one secured in the cleanup phase, and in the power phase they also give +1 power, so there's going to be a lot of power generation in this match. It's a good mix. And if we look at the table here, we have 1 cube fragment, 1 formula, 1 cube fragment, 1 formula, 1 cube fragment, pardon me, there we are, formula, cube fragment, and 1 cube fragment roughly in the direct center of the map. So we're all set up and good to go. The Black Order are deployed to your left and will be taking second activation. The Guardians of the Galaxy on your right, and the Black Order do have a 1 model disadvantage in terms of total numbers, so they can have passes at points if they choose to use them, that is. And if we just take a quick look then, Black Swan, Black Dwarf next to each other on this flank, Thanos and Supergiant up here. And then we come over here, we have Star-Lord down here with a Winging It token, Groot and then Rocket with a Winging It token, Gamora with a Winging It token, and then Angela up here on the end here by herself without a token. So, with things set up, we are ready to jump in. I feel like this is going to be a very bloody one, just because of the amount of power generation there's going to be, but let's see. Battle round 1. So the deadliest woman in the galaxy got the game started. Gamora activated for the Guardians. She moves long and did so, and then hopped up onto the building for her second move, paid 1 power and has picked up the middle cube, and she has that Winging It token for defense purposes. Because remember, up to 2 dice rerolled on an attack, defense, or dodge. So it's a little early in the round, but the Mad Titan himself has activated. Thanos moved up medium to pay 1 power to pick up the cube fragment there, but rather than stay next to that infinity formula, he decided to move again because Gamora was out of his range 3, and I think she has stealth anyway, so he would have had to be within 3 to see her. So he couldn't attack her, so suffered impaired movement to climb up on top of the building, and is aiming instead for the infinity formula on the Guardian's side of the table. Star-Lord hopped into action, medium moving over to where you can see him, and paying 1 power to pick up the cube fragment, similarly to what Thanos did. He's just going to waste his other action and do nothing. He wants to hang back. Black Dwarf and Black Swan don't have a lot of ranged options. Black Swan has a range 3 I-beam, but he still wants to just hang back to try and avoid getting peppered with shots. So we're sticking over this end of the table for the Black Order as Supergiant activated, and she does move very, very slow. So her short movements just got her, well, she had to use both, just to get within one of the infinity formula there, blocking kind of like this side of it. And she wants to try and get close to the enemies because enemies rolling crits near her and feed her power habit. So the visiting Asgardian from space activated, and all Angela did was move into position such that she could pay 1 of her 2 power, because she gets 2 for being an Asgardian, to pick up the cube fragment that was there, and is within 1 of the infinity formula on the roof there, because again in Crisis Protocol you just go by as the crow flies for distance to things. 2 activations left for the Black Order, and it was Black Dwarf who activated of the 2, and he's also a small, slow mover, so he just shuffled up a little bit with the infinity formula right smack dab in front of him, paid 1 power and picked up the cube fragment that was there as well. Kind of blocking where Black Swan can go now, but such as it is. Second last activation of the first round was Groot for the Guardians. He moved up small twice, or a bit and a half really, just to get within 1 of the infinity formula there to give himself a bit of power in the next power phase, and to block it off from Black Swan. Kind of bodyguarding for Quill as well, but not in the literal sense. So they've only got Rocket to go, but it is over to Black Swan for the final Black Order activation. It was a simple enough move for the lady with the death beam eyes. She wanted to move up, but also wanted that little bit of extra power in the next power phase, so it's just on the far side of the infinity formula, right where you see her. And finally, Rocket moved up, medium, and jumped on top of the car there. I think it was mentioned when going over the teams, but Bodyguard from Groot now is range 2, so he is actually just in the Bodyguard range right there, staying on the car because it provides cover, because of how the cover weirdly works in this game. He's range 5 on his gun. He wanted to take a shot with his other action, can't really see, well, Black Dwarf is out of range, can't really see Black Swan, so he's not going to do anything with his other action. He's just going to stay there and hope that he can do something next turn. So that does mean that all the Winging It tokens get discarded in the cleanup phase. They get reissued in the power phase of Battle Round 2. So then Battle Round 1, that went like you would expect. Just a lot of movement, a lot of claiming objectives, a lot of grabbing cube fragments, and a lot of ignoring each other. No dice rolled, no attacks dealt. That is very quickly going to change though as we go into Battle Round 2. As far as points go, there was only 1 point difference in the spread possible because of there being 5 cube fragments in total. So Gamora grabbing the middle one behind that building there, or on that building there, is what swung it in the Guardians' favour. They held 2 other fragments along with the one she grabbed, and hold 2 of the Infinity Formulas, so that puts them on 5. The Black Order have 2 cube fragments and 2 Infinity Formulas, putting them at 4. Everybody who picked up a cube fragment is getting extra power, but taking 1 damage. So that's Gamora, Quill, and who else? Angela for the Guardians, and Thanos and Black Dwarf for the Black Order. And also everybody starting in contesting range of a formula, also getting an extra power. So everyone is going to have a lot of power to play with in this next round. It's going to get very violent very quickly. So without further ado, let's jump in and see how it plays out. So as we start Battle Round 2, just to quickly go over who's getting Winging It tokens this time. Rocket has 1, Gamora has 1, and Angela has 1. And everyone except Gamora and Rocket gain 1 power from being within contesting ranges of all the formulas on the table. And it is the Black Order who have first activation. So the first proper activation of Battle Round 2 was Thanos, and he moved up to claim that Infinity Formula and decided he had a stain that needed to be removed. So he fired his Cosmic Blast into Angela. He threw in the 3 power to max out the dice. He can roll for up to 8 from 5. And he did pretty well. The initial roll had 3 crits. Her defense roll, not so great. She used her Winging It token to get 2 rerolls. Didn't make anything better. She took 4 damage, was pushed away from him small, and suffers the slow condition. Now, because of the self-inflicted wound from her holding a cube fragment, that also means she is one away from falling into daze, which is not a good start for the Guardians this turn. So Angela had little choice but to activate because Supergiant could just go and finish her off otherwise. She shook her slow for her first action, then moved long down here to relative safety amongst friends, because even if she didn't get attacked, she's still dazing at the end of the turn thanks to holding onto that cube fragment that she can't get rid of. So she wants to be around people who aren't going to nab it from her. But it is a bit of a waste of a turn. She's got so much power that she could have been using to try and hurt Thanos, but it didn't seem worth it. So this was a bit of a fun activation for the Black Order. Black Swan activated. I'm going to be saying black a lot. They used Black Onslaught to start her turn when she initiated a charge by spending 2 power. So when Black Swan is within 2 of Black Dwarf and she uses charge, they can spend 1 each to play this card after the charge movement is resolved, but before making the attack, you place Black Dwarf within 1 of Black Swan. So she did her charge move from there to here. Black Dwarf appears within 1, right smack dab there, facing down the raccoon on the card there. She then did a basic trike, which is 5 dice for her, with a push on a wild. First one, he fully blocked, no wilds. Second one though, she managed to do 1 damage, which is not great. But she did get the wild, and it's a push away from if you're size 4 or less. So Groot has been pushed back small. Should technically have been facing a bit more this way to make it, again, it was planned to try for that wild. So he has been pushed away. He's still contesting the Infinity Formula, but the important part here is he is no longer within bodyguard range of poor Rocket. So what followed was a defensive movement and full activation for Tree. Groot activated, he moved his small back into range to protect Rocket, and then spent 3 power on We Are Groot. So he can spend 3 to play this card. Groot and allied characters within 4 of him, which is currently everybody, including Gamora, because range 4 is pretty long, they all heal 2 damage. So that only mattered for Angela. She healed 2, but Gamora healed the 1 damage she took from the cube fragment, so did Peter, and Groot healed 1 damage on himself as well. So it is a very good card to be using this early, but it felt necessary. So when dice rolls do not go in the favour of averages for the Black Order, it really starts to hurt when you have so few activations. You need your heavy hitters to actually hit heavily. Black Dwarf activated, spent 2 on Enforced Oblivion, which is an action for his superpower. It's a move, but he has 2 extra dice thrown in for his next attack. So he used that move to put himself contesting the Infinity Formula there. Then he did his basic axe strike, 6 base up to 8, against Quill, because he was right there, and it felt like he could do a lot of damage. Here's the roll for it. This is the roll over here. That's the roll right there. 2 successes, which even without a wing token required at all, Quill easily blocked on his 3 physical defense. So it did nothing. Gamora activated, hopped over the building onto the street below, and then ran back here to snatch up the Infinity Formula that Black Dwarf and Black Swan have ignored. So the Black Order still have Supergiant left, but she opted to pass, so it was over to Peter. And this is just to show that the Guardians can also roll bad dice. He spent 3 power to go full auto with his element guns, and this is the attack roll right here. Even worse than Black Dwarf's. Although hilariously, it still got through his defense and did that 1 damage. No stats effects though, so 1 damage there. He then just shot his normal element guns, and in true Crisis Protocol fashion, that was more effective than the big dice, big spend attack. It did 2 damage to Black Dwarf. So in total, with the self-inflicted cube from turn 1, he's up to 4 damage of his 6 health, I think. So Supergiant did activate, and you'll notice that she's nowhere to be seen from where she was. We're going to have to take a trip around the table because Mothership was played in her turn. 2 Black Order characters may both spend 2 to play this card. Place one of the 2 characters not holding an objective token within one of the other, which in this case is Supergiant rather, because she had no objectives. So she teleported within 1 of Black Dwarf, who had the power to spend after getting beaten up by Quill. So she was placed right there. Then she did 2 of her basic attacks on him, the 5 dice mental or mystic attack rather, with power gain of 1 regardless of whether or not it does damage, and it would have healed her if she had any damage of her own. The first one got through on Quill for 2 damage, the second one was fully blocked. So a little bit of damage back on Quill there. It's going to take another 1 as when we end the turn. But first though, a very angry raccoon with a big gun gets to activate first. So Rocket started by firing his plasma rifle right into Black Dwarf's face, and that resulted in, he used his winging token on that attack for 2 rerolls. Resulted in 2 damage, that's 3 damage down to 2, haven't been mentioning it, but Black Dwarf reduces damage received by 1 to a minimum of 1. He only needed to take 1 damage, so either way he is dazed. Rocket paid 1 to pick up the cube fragment that was dropped, which meant he didn't have enough to then do a Hadron Enforcer attack. So he just did another basic plasma rifle shot, this time against Supergiant, and got her for 1 damage, all said and done. So that is the end of the second battle round. Now we're going to scoring. So at the end of battle round 2 there were some very unfortunate rolls not going in the Black Order's favour, and that made them pay the price. The Guardians of the Galaxy have 4 of the 5 cube fragments for 4 victory points, and Gamora holds the Infinity Formula down here for another one, putting them at 10. Now it does mean 4 of them are going to take 1 damage, Gamora, Rocket, Angela and Star-Lord, which is going to be bad for Angela. That's going to put her 2 away from being stunned again. In terms of the Black Order, Thanos is obviously holding the formula all the way up there. He also has a cube fragment, so he'll be taking 1 damage from that, but he's generated the Black Order 2 victory points. The Infinity Formula top left of your screen currently, no one's on it obviously, and thanks to Black Dwarf getting dazed, it is a drawdown here, so no one has scored on this one. So as we go into battle round 3, Black Order retain first activation unless they choose to pass, but they're trailing behind 10 versus 6. So as we start battle round 3, here is who has the Wing It tokens this time, from left to right, obviously Star-Lord, Groot and Angela. And a lot of power generated for everybody who was within contesting range of a formula, and or if they held a cube fragment. So again, it's going to be a very bloody, violent round. So we're staying over here because Black Dwarf was the first to activate, and he started by doing his big attack, Brutal End I believe it's called. 8 dice physical, does a stagger on a wild, but that's not required because it spiked pretty high and got a quill. Despite him rolling 2 rerolls with his Wing It token incidentally, did 7 damage because his first attempt at a defense roll had no successes. 2 rerolls, still no successes. So he is very much dazed and has dropped his cube fragment, which Black Dwarf had 1 power left and has paid to pick it up. Since he is on his dazed side now, he's not helping to really hold that formula. He can at least hold a cube. And on his dazed side he gets plus 2 HP, so he's up to 8. So he's pretty tanky. Then he did a basic attack on Groot, who opted not to use his Winging It token this time, and has taken 2 damage as a result. So first activation for the Guardians this turn was Rocket, and he started blasting. He used Deadly Duo this turn to give him 3 attacks essentially. Deadly Duo, during Rocket's activation, if he's within 2 of Groot, they both spend 2. Rocket can do 3 Plasma Rifle attacks this turn, but each one has to target a different character, which is a-okay for him, because there's a lot of potential targets. So he went down the line of the Black Order down here, starting with Black Swan. He got her really good. She doesn't have any kind of rule for reducing damage. She took 4, Black Dwarf took 2, reduced to 1, and then Supergiant also took 2. So he did a lot of work there for very little cost, and has been generating a lot of power as a result. Black Swan activated, and she finally got to show off just what she can do. She spent a total of 6 power to start her turn for a charge plus her big spender attack, which is called Everything Dies. So she moved over here, and then she used Everything Dies on Groot, which includes a throw on a wild, and as long as she gets a hit, she gets to do a free eye beams follow-up. So the initial Everything Dies did 3 damage to him despite him using his Winging It token. He got chucked because there was a wild into Angela, who despite using a Winging It token also whiffed her dodge roll. I think only 1 would have been 1 or 2 damage would have been enough anyway, but she took 3, so is dazed. She dropped her cube fragment there. Groot then got the eye beam follow-up, which did 2 damage. It would have also done Incinerate, doesn't matter. He is dazed as well. Unfortunately, I keep wanting to say Supergiant, Black Swan is fully tapped with power, so she can't pick up the cube fragment. Oh, and for her other action, because that was a combo, technically 3 actions in 1 with the charge is the move and attack, but then the attack had a follow-up free attack as well. She tried to do her basic strike on Rocket, who is now undefended, but his 2 defense dice was actually enough to block the bad roll, so he is still on his feet and has a chance to snatch and run if he so chooses. So we were totally forgetting that of course Rocket already activated this turn because he was doing a Deadly Duo play, so he can't go get that cube fragment. The last activation in the turn, because of Groot and Angela getting dazed along with Star-Lord, is Gamora, and she's just going to hang back and hold that Infinity Formula because she doesn't want any part of what's going on elsewhere. For now, that might not be the best play, but they are enough points ahead that just helping make up the difference seems like the best play. So Thanos and Supergiant get to activate. They might want to just stay where they are to secure points. We shall see. Yeah, this is going to be a super fast turn 3. So Thanos did stay over there to claim the points from that Infinity Formula, but he did move down to this side of it. He is still within 1 though, so he will be securing a victory point, and he's just heading towards the melee down here. Because with enough of the Guardians going to their dazed side next turn, if the Black Order can start killing them, they'll start making up that point spread thanks to Thanos' affiliation bonus. Supergiant, she simply moved, paid 1, picked up cube, moved back. It's not exactly safe on her because if any physical attack hits her, she drops all things she's holding. But for the purposes of this point, or this scoring phase, it makes a difference. And on that note, let's see how the points stand. So at the end of Battle Round 3, the Guardians of the Galaxy only hold on to 2 cube fragments, I believe. 1 on Gamora, 1 on Rocket. So they're also both taking 1 damage and getting 1 extra power. But that gives them 2 victory points. Then Gamora holds the back formula here, meaning in total they gained 3, taking them to 13. Unlucky for some, but 3 away from winning. The Black Order made back a lot of ground there. They've got the other 3 cube fragments. Black Dwarf has 1. Thanos has 1, Supergiant has 1, so that's 3 there. Thanos is holding that formula up there, and they also hold this formula here for a total of 5 points, taking them up to 11. So now they're only trailing by 2. Everything to play for as we go into a very pivotal round 4, but the Guardians have first activation, and they've got a lot of power to play with. So as we start Battle Round 4, it's the same 3 people getting the Wing Ant tokens for the Guardians this turn. Star-Lord has 1, Groot has 1, and Angela has 1. So it is Angela that's going to get the turn started for the Guardians, but first, Lovable Misfits was played, so we're going to cover that before her actual activation. She, Groot, and Star-Lord each paid 1 power, so you roll a die and do what it says on the card, essentially. Unfortunately, Angela rolled a skull, which means she and any character within 2 is stunned, so that's her, Black Swan, and Groot. Then Groot rolled a shield, so he got a free move, which is why he's shifted ever so slightly and is now in bodyguard range of Rocket again, which is important because Rocket still has a cube fragment. Star-Lord rolled a hit, which let him do, what was it again? Let's see. Nope, lost it on the card. Where is it? It's not a crit or a wild, it's just a hit. If they roll a hit, enemy characters within 3 of this character holding or contesting an objective token suffer 1 damage. So Black Dwarf and Supergiant have taken 1 more damage. Actually, I think that's enough to daze Supergiant. It is! So she's going to be dropping her formula, or her cube fragment, so Angela's going to go pick it up, I think. Now we'll get to Angela's turn eventually, but there was a counterplay. Blood to Spare was played because Supergiant would be dazed. So she can spend 3 and immediately does an attack. She did her basic attack on Quill. It did only 1 damage, but that's all it needed to do because that means she heals by 1, and that explains why the card has this text on it, which wasn't relevant to any other Black Order members. The character immediately performs an attack before gaining the Dazed token. If this attack results in the character removing damage, it's not dazed. So also, the cube fragment is still on her now. She only has 1 health still, so Angela can go get her, but that is still a nice bit of help. So finally getting to Angela's turn, she moved long to roughly next to Star-Lord there, did her basic Sword of Zephos, or Zepho, Sword of the Star, whatever it's called. She did that on Supergiant. It dealt 1 flat damage because of the roll Supergiant has, but that is enough that she's dazed. Angela picked up the cube for 1, and then used Angelic Assassin for 2 power because she got daze, which gives her a free small move, which put her where you see her, and then she did a free sword attack on Black Dwarf, 2 damage down to 1. He's actually getting pretty close to being removed at this point. Black Dwarf activated and used another brutal end on Star-Lord. Would have done more damage, but Star-Lord spent his Wing Ant token to ensure it only did 3, which was enough to keep him on his feet. So frustrated by this, Black Dwarf then spent on Black Fury, picked Quill up, chucked him into Angela. The 1 flat damage that did is enough, he's removed, and thanks to Thanos' affiliation bonus, that means they instantly gain 1 victory point for knocking out a target, putting them to 12. He then tried a basic strike, Angela's dodge, she took 1 damage. He then tried a basic strike on Angela, she's also on her dazed side and she's holding a cube fragment too, but she fully blocked it, so took nothing from that. Well, Rocket activated and managed to burn through most of his accumulated power for not much of a return. He did a Hadron Enforcer, which is 4 power I think. On Black Dwarf it did 3 damage down to 2. Didn't do enough, so he was like, okay fine, we can do another one then. And did so, and it was fully blocked. It was a bit of a whiff of a roll, and he has no tokens to do rerolls. So Black Dwarf is standing with 2 health left, I believe. The Mad Titan Thanos activated, and he went for a little bit of a Hail Mary play. He moved up medium, and then spent 2 on Cosmic Portal to teleport Rocket from the safety of his tree right next to him, where he then did a basic strike. Only did 1 damage, but that's all that was required because of the damage he'd been doing to himself. Rocket is dazed, he dropped his cube fragment, and Thanos has picked it up, so he's now holding 2 of them. He then also used Advanced R&D just to shift 1 power onto Black Swan. Groot activated, and he's basically the last activation that will probably matter for the Guardians, because Gamora will just want to hang back and score points probably. He used I Am Groot, his big 8 dice physical, on Black Dwarf. 3 damage, reduced to 2, it only needed to do 1, so Black Dwarf... Actually, he's not dazed, sorry, why is that there? He is not dazed, he is murderized, he is very dead, we have a very dead. And he dropped his cube fragment, which Groot paid 1 to pick up, and then he moved to help Angela have majority on this Infinity Formula, because as long as they can score 3 points this turn, the Black Order can't win. So believe it or not, but it all came down to Black Swan's turn. The reason Thanos gave her power was so she could spend 2 on a charge to initiate, move down, initiated a basic strike on Angela, managed to do 3 damage, which was pretty good because the power was required. She then did another basic strike, and this is where butterfly effect, there's 2 paths converging. If she had taken Angela out, she would have had the power to pick up the cube that Angela dropped, which means that the Black Order would have won 16 to, let's see, 1, 2 to 15. Yeah, 16 to 15. They would have won by a single point. Sadly, even after spending 1 power on Telepathic Suggestion, which lets her reroll a successful defense dice on her opponent's dice, the second attack was completely blocked, so it did nothing, which means that Angela lives, and, well, let's go to the cleanup to show what happened there, because Gamora's just going to stay there for that point, because that point is all that matters. So at the end of turn 4, the game is over thanks to the opposite scenario happening from the one I laid out before you. If Angela had been taken out, it would have been a Black Order win by a single point, but as things stand, Thanos has 2 cube fragments for 2 victory points, and Black Swan is the only one holding this because she's the only one on her healthy side. So they gain 3, which takes them to 15. Angela has that cube fragment, Groot has a cube fragment, Gamora has a cube fragment, that's 3, and Gamora is holding this Infinity Formula here, giving them 4, which takes them to the 16 required to win. So again, if things had played out differently, if Angela had gone down, that 1 cube fragment that she's holding would have been held by Black Swan, which would have switched who had the 1 point turn, and would have meant that the Black Order won. Actually, they would have won by 2, because Angela's on her day's side, so she would have died, which means Thanos would get 1 more victory point for his affiliation bonus. So they actually would have won 17 to 15, as opposed to 16 to 15. But either way, it all came down to that one last attack, needing to do, I think she had 2 damage on her already, or 1 damage, so it would have needed to do 3 more, which, 5 dice physical against 4 physical defense, not super likely. Groot has 4 physical defense too, so either way. But she had a cube fragment, so that swung it. That was a close one! Thanos' affiliation bonus almost swung it the other direction. The Guardians put up a good fight, they seem pretty decent now, their affiliation bonus is actually useful. And yeah, that was just a fun battle, with a lot of power to spend on both sides, which makes it explodey, as they say. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching, thank you very much for doing so. We'll definitely be back for more Crisis Protocol in the future, so subscribe if you would like to see it. Until next time, ta-ta for now.